Do you know what happens to most drivers the second a cop radios for a K9 unit during a traffic stop? They freeze. They panic. They say the absolute wrong thing. And within 60 seconds, they hand over every single right they have without the officer needing a warrant, probable cause, or even a good reason. You just handed them permission on a silver platter. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could be the difference between driving away clean or watching a dog tear apart your car while you stand on the side of the road in handcuffs. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos and the pattern is always the same. Drivers who know these tactics walk. Drivers who don't. Here's what you're about to learn. The exact sentence you say the moment a cop mentions the K9. The legal principle that puts a hard clock on how long they can hold you. The one mistake that resets that clock and destroys your case. And the real scenario walkthrough that shows you exactly how this plays out in a live traffic stop from first contact to driving away free. This is information that defense attorneys use in court every single day, and most people have no idea any of it exists. Let's talk about why the 60-second window is everything. You get pulled over. Maybe you were speeding. Maybe a taillight is out. The officer walks up, takes your license and registration, goes back to his car. Normal so far. But then something shifts. He comes back, and instead of handing you a ticket, he says he wants to run his dog around your vehicle. Or maybe he already called for the dog before he even came back to your window. That right there is where the game changes completely. Most drivers at this moment do one of three things. They say, sure, go ahead. They say nothing and just sit there. Or they start nervously talking, explaining themselves, volunteering information nobody asked for. All three of those responses are wrong. All three of them cost you. Here's the reality. The law gives you specific tools for exactly this moment. But those tools only work if you know what they are and you use them before that dog arrives. The first tactic is the one that controls everything. It is your non-consent statement, and you need to say it clearly, calmly, and immediately. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches of my vehicle. Word for word. Memorize that line. Say it right now out loud so your brain hears it. Say it again. That line does something powerful. It creates a legal record. The moment those words leave your mouth, they go on the body cam. They go in the report. And if anything is found in a search after that, your attorney can argue suppression because you made your position clear. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Saying no to a search does not give them probable cause. Refusing consent is not suspicious behavior. The Supreme Court said so directly in Schneckloth v. Bustamante in 1973. In plain English, that means the following. You have the right to say no. Saying no cannot be used as a reason to search you. That is 100% legal. Watch what happens when drivers skip this step. The officer asks if he can look around. The driver says nothing, just shrugs. The officer interprets that as passive consent. The search happens. Whatever is found gets used against the driver. But smart drivers say those exact words, I do not consent to any searches. And now the officer has to work harder. He needs actual probable cause. He needs a warrant. He cannot just dig through your car because he feels like it. That one sentence shifts the legal burden back onto the officer where it belongs. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection in the first 30 seconds of a K9 encounter. Have you ever actually been asked if a cop could search your car? Drop a comment below right now and tell me what you said. I read every single one. The second tactic is the detention clock challenge, and this one uses time as your weapon. Here's the reality. A traffic stop is only supposed to last as long as it takes to handle the reason you were stopped. That's it. If you were stopped for speeding, the stop ends when the officer gives you a ticket or a warning. He cannot legally extend that stop just to wait for a dog to show up unless he already has independent probable cause. The Supreme Court nailed this down in Rodriguez v. United States in 2015. In 7th grade English, that means this. The moment the traffic business is done, your detention time is up. Any extra time they hold you just to wait for a K9 is an illegal extension unless they have a real reason beyond just wanting to check. So here's what you say after your non-consent statement. You look at the officer and you say this, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact 9 words. Repeat them out loud right now. Am I being detained or am I free to leave? That question forces the officer to make a legal decision on camera. He either has to tell you why he's detaining you, which requires actual reasonable suspicion, or he has to let you go. Bad way. A driver just sits quietly, looks nervous, fidgets. The officer keeps chatting, stalling, waiting for the dog to roll up. 7 minutes pass. Dog arrives. Search happens. Driver gets arrested. Good way. Driver says calmly, am I being detained or am I free to go? Officer has to either justify the hold or end the stop. No justification means the clock is ticking on an illegal detention. Former police officers have confirmed that this question changes the dynamic of the stop immediately because now the officer knows you understand your rights. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the stops where drivers ask this question consistently end faster and with fewer searches than stops where drivers never ask. The third tactic is about controlling your mouth, and this might be the hardest one because everything in your brain is going to tell you to explain yourself. Listen closely because this is critical. The K9 unit showing up feels scary. Your instinct is to fill the silence, to prove you're innocent, to explain why there's nothing in your car, to be friendly and cooperative and hope they'll just leave you alone. Do not do any of that. Every single word you say after the initial stop can be used to build probable cause. You mentioned you were coming from a party. Now they're suspicious. You say you're stressed because you're late for work. Now they note your nervous behavior. You explain that your friend borrowed your car last week. Now they have a reason to think contraband might be in there. Here's exactly what you say when they ask you questions beyond the traffic stop reason. Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent. That's it. 7 words. Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent. This is 100% legal. The Fifth Amendment gives you this right. Miranda v. Arizona in 1966 locked this in permanently. In plain English, that means you cannot be punished legally for refusing to answer questions. Your silence cannot be used as evidence of guilt. Watch what happens when people skip this. Officer asks where they're going. Driver starts explaining their whole day. Officer notes several inconsistencies. That becomes the justification for prolonged detention while the dog finishes its sweep. Smart drivers say, Officer, I'm choosing to remain silent and let the stop play out without giving the officer extra material to work with. Legal experts agree that keeping your mouth controlled in a K9 stop is just as powerful as knowing the legal challenges. Most people watching right now have already clicked away. If you're still here, you are in the top 10% of drivers who actually take their rights seriously. Drop a comment right now that says, I'm still here, so I know who's watching. Because the next part is where everything ties together, and it's the most important section of this entire video. The fourth tactic is the documentation move, and it is your insurance policy after the stop. Here's the trick that most people skip because they think the stop is over when they drive away. It is not over. What you do in the next 10 minutes after stop involving a K9 can determine whether you win or lose in court months later if it comes to that. The moment you are away from the scene, you write down everything. The officer's name and badge number, the patrol car number, the exact time the stop started and ended, the exact words the officer used when he mentioned the K9, whether you were handed a ticket or just released, and whether the dog actually walked around the vehicle or just arrived. And most importantly, word for word what you said and when you said it. Here's exactly what you text yourself the moment you pull over somewhere safe. Stop at exact location, exact time. Said I do not consent. Asked if detained. Chose to remain silent. K9 arrived at this time. Dog walked around at this time, released at this time. Date it. Send it to yourself. That timestamp creates a record. Defense attorneys use this exact information in court to challenge the timeline of a stop. This comes straight from the legal playbook of suppression hearings. The cases that get thrown out are often the ones where the defense can prove the timeline was stretched beyond what the traffic stop required. And your timestamp notes are Exhibit A. Let me give you the legal framework that holds all 4 of these tactics together, so you understand why this is not just good advice, but airtight constitutional protection. Rodriguez v. United States 2015 said in plain English that cops cannot extend a traffic stop beyond the time needed to deal with the infraction just to wait for a dog. Every second past the end of that ticket process is legally questionable. Schneckloth v. Bustamante. 1973 said in plain English that you have the right to refuse a search, and that refusal cannot be used as justification for searching you anyway. Illinois v. Cabals, 2005, said in plain English that a dog sniff of the exterior of your car during a lawful stop does not by itself violate your rights. But the key word is lawful. If the stop was unlawfully extended to wait for that dog, everything found becomes fruit of the poisonous tree and can be suppressed. Those 3 cases together build a wall around you if you use the tactics in this video correctly. Now let me show you exactly how this looks in real life. You are on the highway, doing 72 and a 65. Blue lights come on, you pull over. Officer walks up, asks for license and registration. You hand them over, routine so far. He goes back to his car, 5 minutes pass. He comes back and says he's going to have a K9 unit come by. Wrong way. Most drivers say, okay, sure, I have nothing to hide. They sit there making small talk with the officer. They mention they just came from their cousin's house. They laugh nervously. They let 10 minutes go by without saying anything important. Dog arrives. Dog hits on the car. Search happens. Even if nothing is found, the experience is traumatic, the car is torn up, and the driver had no legal ground to stand on. Right way. The moment the officer mentions the K9, you say calmly, Officer, I do not consent to any searches of my vehicle. Then you say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? If he says you're free to leave, you leave immediately. If he says you're being detained, you say, officer, I'm choosing to remain silent. You do not panic, you do not explain, you do not fill the silence. You sit calmly and let the officer make every move on camera while your non-consent is already on the record. After the stop, you document everything immediately. You now have a time-stamped record of the entire event. If anything goes sideways legally, your attorney has a complete picture. Watch what happens in the right scenario. The officer, now on camera with your non-consent, clearly stated, either needs to justify the detention with real probable cause, or he lets you go. Most of the time, without you handing him anything to work with, the stop ends. You drive away. No search, no arrest. Just a speeding ticket and a story about how knowing your rights saved your day. In 3 days, I'm dropping this video on what to do when a cop claims he smells marijuana coming from your vehicle. That one gets people arrested every single day, and it is completely preventable. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that might be the most important video I ever put out. The tactics in that video build directly on everything you just learned here. Here's the quick version of everything you just learned. The moment a K9 gets mentioned, say, I do not consent to any searches, out loud and on camera. Follow it immediately with, am I being detained or am I free to leave, to challenge the clock. Keep your mouth shut beyond that with, I am choosing to remain silent so you don't build their case for them. And document every detail with a timestamped text to yourself the moment the stop is over. Those 4 moves, used together in that order, form a legal shield that defense attorneys point to in court. Hit subscribe so you catch the drug dog smell video dropping in 3 days. Smash that like button if this just saved you from making a mistake during your next traffic stop. And drop a comment below telling me which of the 4 tactics you're going to memorize first. I'm reading every single one. Stay safe out there. C. 2026. Script Scene Splitter AI GitHub.